Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's video is actually a follow-up from a video that I've already done here. At the beginning of June, when I started this channel and embarked on this journey, I reacted to the Star-Spangled Banner as you've never heard it. Something I never expected was for the video to be viewed by thousands of people in just a short amount of time. But with that came something even better, because as comments started pouring in, I quickly learned that as much as the video told a great story, some parts weren't completely accurate and left out important historical details. Now, some of the comments did explain what actually happened, but I still wanted to dig a little deeper and find a video that was built on documented historical accounts. Because if y'all are anything like me, I learned things much better by seeing the story unfold rather than simply reading about it. So the video we're going to be checking out today is called The True Story of the Star-Spangled Banner, America at 250, the Dawn's Early Light. So without further ado, pull up a chair and let's get right into it. Alrighty, let's let the truth unfold. Let's go.
200 years ago, a man on the deck of a ship watched his country burn.
Wow.
He could not fight. He could not run. He could only wait to see whether when the smoke cleared, there would be any nation left at all.
Wow,
Out of that
sad.
one night came the lines that 100 million people would one day sing without ever knowing what they cost.
Yep.
You know the song. You've heard it at ball games, at ceremonies, on quiet mornings and crowded afternoons, the words rising up before you even reach for them. Oh, say, can you see? Let me tell you the miracle behind them.
We all have.
And what a man had to stand and watch before he could even write them. It begins with a city on fire. The summer of 1814.
Look at that.
For 2 years, the young United States had been at war with Great Britain, the most powerful empire on earth.
So something I heard, and I'm going to do my best, obviously, like I try to do in all videos, to not try to pause it as much, but something that I'm just going to go back at this photo. Something that I saw in the comment section was from my video was that the White House still has burn marks on it. Now, I'm not too sure if that's true or not. I'll have to look into that. But if you guys want to let me know, of course, you know where to put it. Put it down below for me. I would definitely appreciate it.
Young United States had been at war with Great Britain.
Okay.
The most powerful empire on earth and master of the seas. For most of that war, Britain had been looking the other way, its attention fixed on Napoleon across the ocean in Europe. But in the spring of 1814, Napoleon fell, and the empire turned at last to deal with its former colonies. That August, a British fleet sailed up the Chesapeake Bay, and troops marched straight into Washington City, the capital.
Oh wow,
of the
look at all,
United
that's a
States.
lot of them.
And they set it on fire. The
Dang,
president's house,
crazy.
the Capitol building, other public buildings of the young nation, all of it burned and left as blackened shells against the sky. President Madison himself fled into the countryside. The government scattered. Imagine what that did to the heart of a young country. To see its own capital humiliated and smoldering.
Yeah, I don't know what I
If
would
Washington could fall in a single afternoon, then what city in America was safe? And the British were not finished. They had a bigger prize in their sights.
What was
40
it?
miles to the north, a thriving port city, the third largest in the country, home to the fast American ships that had been a thorn in Britain's side all through the war. The city? Baltimore. But the story of the Star-Spangled Banner does not turn on fleets or generals. It turns on two ordinary men. The first was a country doctor named William Beans. As the British Army marched towards Washington, Beans had been courteous to them, even hosting some of their officers in his own home. But as the British retreated, a few of the stragglers began looting the local farms, and Beans and his neighbors rounded them up and locked them away. To the British, that was a betrayal. This was a man who had welcomed them at his table, and now he had turned on the soldiers, and they would not let it stand. It was after midnight when they came for him. They surrounded the house, pulled the old man from his bed, and gave him only moments to dress before marching him out into the dark. They carried him off to their fleet as a prisoner. and word came back that he might be shipped across the ocean to rot in an English jail. His neighbors were frantic to save him, and so they turned to the second man in our story. His name was Francis Scott Key.
Yep.
35 years old, a lawyer from Georgetown, an amateur poet, and a man of deep Christian faith. He had opposed this war and carried doubts about it from the very start. But none of that mattered now. A friend was in chains, and Key was asked to bring him home. President Madison himself approved the mission, and Key wouldn't go alone. He'd travel with Colonel John Skinner, the government's own agent for prisoner exchanges. On September the 5th, 1814, the two of them sailed out of Baltimore under a white flag of truce, on a small 60-foot sloop straight toward the most powerful navy in the world.
Wow.
They found the British fleet, and they were taken aboard the enemy flagship, a great warship called the Tonnant. There, they came face to face with the British command, including General Robert Ross, the very man whose troops had just burned Washington. And there, over what some accounts say was a dinner, Key made his case. He was a lawyer. Persuasion was his craft.
Right.
But his most powerful argument wasn't anything he said. It was something he carried. One by one, he laid letters on the table in front of the British officers. Letters written by their own wounded soldiers, men captured at Bladensburg, describing the kindness and the care they had received at the hands of the American doctors. The officers read the words of their own men, and perhaps with a softened heart agreed. Dr. Beans would go free.
Okay.
But there was a catch. In their time aboard the fleet, Key and Skinner had simply seen too much. They'd seen the ships and counted the guns. They'd overheard the plan, the coming attack on Baltimore. The British couldn't release them now and let them sail home to sound the alarm. And so the three Americans were told they were free to go, but not yet. Not until the battle was over. They were placed back aboard their own little truce ship, and that ship was tethered under guard, behind the fleet about 8 miles down the river, from the one fort still standing between the British and the city of Baltimore, a fort named McHenry.
Yep.
They had come to save one man, and now helpless, they would have a front row seat to the destruction of their own country.
Oh, wow.
Ahead of them, across the dark water, stood the fort, and above it, a flag. And to understand what that flag would come to mean before the next night was over, we have to take a step back. Because a year before any of this, Fort McHenry had unknowingly been prepared for this very moment. Its commander had ordered something he was determined the enemy would see. He was a young major named George Armistead, and he wanted a flag for his fort. But not just any flag. He wanted one, in his own words, so large that the British would have no difficulty seeing it from a distance.
Wow.
The job went to a Baltimore widow and professional flag maker named Mary Pickersgill. She and a few other women would sew 2 flags, in fact, the very same design in 2 different sizes. A smaller storm flag to fly in foul weather and high wind, and the great garrison flag, the giant Armistead truly wanted. 15 stars and 15 broad stripes.
Wow, look at that. That's amazing. They made all that by hand.
One for every state in the Union.
Right.
And the scale of that great flag is almost hard to imagine. 30 feet tall, 42 feet long. A flag built not to be admired, but to be seen, even from miles out at sea. That great garrison flag was waiting at Fort McHenry. But it would not be the flag that flew when the guns first opened, because as the sun came up on September the 13th, 1814, the sky was already turned to rain. And in weather like that, the giant flag would have soaked through and torn itself apart. So it was the smaller storm flag that was raised over the fort that morning. The great one stayed furled, in reserve, waiting for a day that might never come. And at about 6:30 that morning, the British fleet opened fire.
Oh, wow, that's crazy.
This was not a fair fight, soldier against soldier. The British had anchored their ships 2 miles out, safely beyond the reach of every American cannon in that fort. And from that distance, they simply began to pound Fort McHenry into pieces.
Wow.
They had ships built for nothing else.
Whoa, look at
Bomb
that.
ships with names like the Terror, the Volcano, the Devastation. They fired mortar shells, hollow iron spheres, some weighing 200 pounds, packed with gunpowder, and timed to burst in the air above the fort and rain fire and iron down on the men below. More than one per minute, hour after hour, and alongside them, a rocket ship hurled concrete rockets, screaming across the sky on long tails of red flame, wildly inaccurate and utterly terrifying. The rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air. Those words were never poetry to Francis Scott Key. He was writing down exactly what he saw. Inside the fort stood 1,000 men under Major Armistead. They fired back as best as they could, until they realized with sinking hearts that their shots were falling short, splashing into the water. The enemy was simply too far out to hit. Think of the helplessness of it. Armistead himself calling it a most distressing circumstance to be hammered without mercy and have no way to strike back.
Wow.
And then came the first miracle. A British shell punched straight through the roof of the fort's powder magazine, where hundreds of barrels of gunpowder were stored. If it had exploded, Fort McHenry could have been blown apart from the inside, gone with a single blast. But the shell did not explode. No strategy guaranteed that. No human hand reached down and pulled the spark from that shell. It landed exactly where catastrophe was waiting. And the catastrophe did not come. And the fort still stood. Then the afternoon sky darkened more, and the rain that had been threatening all morning came down in sheets. And still the bombardment never stopped. And still the little storm flag flew, soaked and battered and whipping in the dark. The small flag never meant for a moment like this,
Right.
taking the full fury of the most powerful navy on earth. But still there. And what a night it was. Total darkness over the water, broken
Wow, look
only
at
by
that.
the flash of explosions. The whole sky lit like a thunderstorm made of fire. The roar never let up. One man who lived through it said it plainly. The portals of hell appeared to have been thrown open.
No, I bet.
And through all of it, the three men stood on the deck of that little ship and watched.
Wow.
All through that endless night, they strained their eyes toward the fort. And every time a shell bursts, in the half second of red light, they were looking for one thing and one thing only. The flag.
Right.
Was it still up? Was it still flying? Because as long as the flag was flying, the fort had not surrendered. As long as the flag was flying, Baltimore still stood. As long as the flag was flying, there was still hope.
Right.
The record can't tell us what was said on the deck through those hours, but we can imagine the question, asked again and again in the dark. Can you still see it? And then, somewhere in the early hours of the morning, the guns went quiet. But the silence was its own kind of terror. Because what did it mean? Had the fort finally fallen? Had the city surrendered in the dark? Or had the British simply given up and gone? There was no way to know. They could only wait for the light.
Yeah,
September
what
the
exactly did
14th,
happen?
Morning, and the rain at last began to ease. On the deck of that ship, Francis Scott Key raised his spyglass toward Fort McHenry. And at first, through all the haze and smoke, he could not make out a thing. He waited. The mist began to thin. The British were pulling back. For 25 hours, they had thrown nearly 1,800 shells at that fort, and it had changed nothing. The walls held. Their ships could never slip past the sunken holes in the harbor mouth, so they were stuck at long range, running low on ammunition, with nothing left to try. A little after 7 that morning, the British admiral called the whole thing off.
Wow.
The fort
That's
had
good.
held. Baltimore would not fall. And so the men of
that's
the
amazing.
fort lowered their soaked and battered storm flag, and in its place, up the 90-foot pole, they raised the garrison in all of its majesty. As
Look
it
at that
climbed,
flag.
the fife and drum struck up Yankee Doodle, played loud and defiant, so the retreating enemy could hear it go. And at that very moment, the sun broke through the clouds, and the light caught the enormous flag.
Wow.
8 miles away, Francis Scott Key could see it. Through his spyglass, he saw the stars and the stripes, catching the dawn, waving in full view above the ramparts. Enormous, unmistakable, exactly as Armistead had meant it to be. After everything, after Washington in ashes, after 25 hours of fire, after a whole night with no way of knowing, the flag was still there. And of the 1,000 men inside that fort,
the flag was still there.
Only 4 had been lost. Key could not look away, and the lawyer who had come only to free a friend felt something rising in him that needed an outlet. He searched his coat and found a single letter, unfolded it to its blank back. There on the deck, with the great flag still streaming in the wind before his eyes, he began to write the lines as they came to him.
Oh, wow.
Oh, say, can you see, by the dawn's early light? He kept writing as the ship carried them home, and within days those words were spreading across the country. In time, the whole world would come to know them as the Star-Spangled Banner.
Yep.
Now consider who gave it to us. Not the powerful, not the famous. A flag stitched by the hands of women. A fort held by 1,000 exhausted men who could barely strike back. A song born in the heart of a doubting lawyer.
Right.
Who had come not to fight, but to free one friend. Ordinary people. And yet, Francis Scott Key never believed they had done this alone. He didn't write that the flag survived by luck, or by the strength of its defenders. In a later verse, he wrote the words, "In God is our trust." For Key, the hand that held the banner through the night was indeed the hand of God. So the next time you stand for that song, don't just stand. Listen to the words. By the dawn's early light, the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Somewhere, right now, that same flag is rising on a pole at first light.
Yeah, right next door to me.
Over a school, a small town, a soldier's grave. And most people walking past will never know what it cost to keep it there.
Exactly.
But you will. And maybe, just maybe, you'll look up a little longer than you used to.
Oh, I already do.
Oh, say, can you see?
Oh, wow. Alrighty, guys. Well, there you have it. Yeah, no, I mean, this is definitely, after reading every one of y'all's, after reading all of the comments, seeing what was already mentioned about what actually happened, and then now actually getting to actually see this actual video, everything all makes sense now. Now, regardless of whether it's that video, this video, whatever video, or just strictly just listening and hearing the national anthem, it's always going to hold a emotional connection to all of us Americans. And I'm gonna be honest throughout this video. I mean, one, I'm a very sentimental person, so it took me a while. It took me a lot to hold back, you know, breaking down, but I held it up just to make sure that I get this video done. But something I did want to actually say was I wanted to apologize for all of you guys. You know, in that one previous video when the national anthem actually played, yes, I absolutely did completely spaced. I completely forgot to take off my hat. I completely forgot to stand, because as you can see, as I film, you know, I got the headset, the hat on, and it just, like, you know, as I was just listening to it, I was just so in tune to it that it kind of like, but so thank you to everybody who commented that. Yes, out of respect, we all should not only stand up. If we're wearing a hat, take it off, put our hands or our hat over our heart, and, you know, just, you know, embrace, you know, the words and the emotional connection that, like I said, that our anthem actually truly entails, and what actually it took to actually get there. But with that being said, Let me know down below if you guys did enjoy this, if this was a little bit more of a better representation of the national anthem. I do listen to you guys. I do read all the comments. Those are the best. Those are the best time of my day, is being able to, anytime I get the notification that a comment got posted, I make time to try to get to get to them and answer them. So I truly do appreciate that. If you like this video, do all the, like they say, the YouTubey things. Hit that thumbs up button. It helps out the channel. Consider subscribing. But like I always like to say, thank you guys just for clicking on the video and being here. But until next time, that's going to be it for me. I will see you guys on the next one. Peace.